Every summer, as part of the Shad program, some of Canada's top high school students skip out on their holidays to instead work on solving real-world problems. This year, several Ontario students were part of the team that won the coveted John Dobson Entrepreneurship Cup for designing an energy-saving roof shingle. And we're happy to have two of them in our studio today. Saad Baig is a grade 12 student in Toronto and a 2017 Shad program graduate. And Scarlett is also a 2017 Shad graduate and a grade 11 student also in the city. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Nam.
I'm so excited to learn more about what you did. But earlier this year, Tim Jackson, the CEO of Shad, was on the agenda, and this is what he had to say about the program.
The month of July, we take 800 students and they travel to 13 universities across the country in groups of about 60. And they spend the month of July together, living in residence, working 7/24, and they get exposed to university faculty who will do lectures. Business leaders, community leaders come in from the community to talk to them. And they're given a real world problem to solve, a social issue. And so over the course of the month, they're learning, but they're also prototyping, they're experimenting, they're innovative, they're failing. And at the end of the month, they come up with a solution to that real world problem.
We're going to get into the real world solution the problem that you found a solution for, but I would like to know how you both got involved in the program. Saad, how did you get involved with Shad?
Okay, so it's actually a pretty funny story. So at my school, they give a presentation in grade 9 to all the grade 9s, you know. They're like, oh, these are all the opportunities you have to enrich your high school career. But it's grade 9, and as you know, Shad, you apply in grade 10s, 11, and 12. So I put it in the back of my mind. Subconsciously, I had, you know, a vision that I wanted to go to this, but I wasn't quite sure, so I put it back there. And then, you know, grade 10 went by, I completely forgot about it. But grade 11 came around, and I'm like, you know what? Remember that program, Shad? I'm gonna research it. And I started to look into it, and it aligned with a lot of my interests. So that's STEAM and entrepreneurship. And I was like, okay, so might as well apply. And I got the response, and I was elated at what.
So it was something that you had in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
So you're in grade 9, it interests you. What was it about it that interested you in grade 9 to begin with?
Well, I mean, like, I knew for a fact that in grade 9, I wanted to be an engineer. But I didn't know, like, specifically what type of engineer I wanted to be or what I wanted to do, you know, as an engineer or in life in general. I just knew I want to make things. But that's not really an outlook. But I knew that Shad would be something that would allow me to experiment, and that's what intrigued me.
And Megan, how about you?
Well, I have to give my mom full credit for me going to Shad because my school is, they're not as proactive as Saad's. They're really great about summer programs, but I never actually learned about Shad at school. So one day my mom, who had learned about a summer program that my school had advertised, but that wasn't Shad, she actually just dropped a stack of pamphlets on my desk and she said, well, why don't you take a look at these if you're interested? And I read over Shad's material and I just thought that it was so fantastic. It aligned with, as Saad said, it aligned with a lot of my interests. I'm very interested in science. And so I thought, I'll put in an application. I had no idea what to expect, but when I got the response, I was so excited, and I couldn't wait to go in July.
And so you get the call, and you're in the program. And Megan, you find out that this year's challenge would be to come up with a way to help Canadians reduce their energy footprint. Now, knowing your background and your interest in biology and genetics, how did you react to that?
I was definitely excited. That was my first reaction because they had been building up to it for a couple days at the program. So we were all very excited to hear the release of the theme. Of course, there was a little bit of nerves because you kind of realize, oh my goodness, I now actually have to do this. But we have such a supportive team of not only our own team, but our mentors and our program directors and our program assistants that were there to help us through every step so that it didn't feel as ginormous as it did when you were just looking at the question. They helped us take it in steps and in the end come up with a final product that we had been working on successfully for the month.
How many people were in your group?
We had 10 people.
10 people, and your team was called Kameleon?
Yeah.
Right? So Megan, what role did you settle on once you were in the group?
I think that considering a lot of our brainstorming at the beginning was discussion-based, a leadership position that I almost found myself in was almost as a moderator in the discussion. I found that happened quite a lot. We were a very diverse team, which was fantastic for our success. I think that was a key player in our success was how diverse we were and how we all worked together. But we had more outspoken people on our team, we had more shy people on our team, and I think that a role that I played was making sure that everybody's opinions were heard, and that even the more quiet people who might not speak up as much, if they had something to say, I was always making sure that they could come in and say what they wanted to say and make sure everybody was contributing.
Were you surprised by yourself being able to do that?
Yeah, I definitely was. I grew up as a pretty shy kid. I didn't really see myself as the leader of a discussion before I came to Shad, but I just seemed to fall naturally into that role, and I found myself a lot after Shad taking up that role in other aspects of my life, which I totally wouldn't have thought I would have done before Shad.
I didn't see that coming, because like the first day I met Megan, she was the youngest person in our group, and we're like, okay, so she's gonna have some input. Originally, I took her to be really shy, but she really stepped up and, took charge in moderating and managing our group discussions. It was kind of funny because, like, originally on the first day, I remember we were sitting in like the main common room, and there were a bunch of people outside the common room, not sure if they should come in or talk. And that's, I guess, where my leadership came in. I was mainly there to support people. So, like, the first day I was like, hey, come on in, guys, start talking, start mingling. So, like, Megan was great at moderating. And then I was generally there to support people, get them to speak up, and keep the group like energized.
Is that something that you're good at, or is it just something you saw a need and then you filled the role?
Well, I guess it's a mix. Like, I'm decently good at motivating people. That's kind of what I'm known for at my school. Just motivational quotes every day, and trying to get people to go for their dreams. And that really is what we needed in our group. And I was like, perfect. I have a skill that I can use, and our group needs it. Might as well use it.
And also skills. You also took on the financial role too, right?
So originally, like as Megan was asked, her interests lining up with our theme. Luckily, my interest did line up because engineering lines up fairly well with the energy theme. And I was like, yeah, let's go. Okay, how can we reduce energy using my knowledge? But the thing was, all of my solutions were fairly like roboticized, robotics-based and system design and mechanical. But the solution we ended up going with was a chemical solution. So I was like, okay, so I can't use my engineering knowledge. What else can I use? And I remembered, okay, so I've taken a few financing and accounting courses. So I immediately switched gears and I switched over to the actual finances.
Well, how did the idea come up at all? Like to put roof shingles on a roof and it changes colors?
Right, so it's, you want to answer this one?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, we had a lot of discussions when we were brainstorming, and we actually, I remember it quite clearly, we had about an hour, and we were sitting in our little common space, which was just an emptied out dorm room that we were all piling into, and we basically took 10 minutes and wrote down ideas, and then we spent the rest of the time sharing and bouncing ideas off of each other and seeing which ones we really liked. And so one girl in our group actually brought up a similar idea to the shingles, except it focused on exterior walls of a house. So from there, we kind of built off of each other and bounced ideas off, and we ended up with this idea that we developed into our product.
I mean, at the end result, you can say, oh, wow, that's a great idea. But I'm assuming there must have been a lot of challenges along the way to get to where you were.
For sure. The actual design process we went through, we had to come up with 3 problems and 3 solutions. And we pitched them to a panel of judges, and they basically, criticized each one of them constructively, and they told us what was good and bad about each. And we ended up going with Kameleon because it was a fairly simple solution, and it was, I guess, small scale in how complex it was. But the actual application could be done on a really large scale because everyone has roofs over their houses, especially in our target market. It's perfect for our idea, and our idea is really simple to understand. I mean, like, a lot of kids have toys that change color already, like Hot Wheels cars and Barbie dolls. Like
or even
Barbie
like painting,
Yeah, even painting.
Yeah.
Like, there's Hot Wheels cars where you put like hot water on, it'll turn red, cold water will turn blue. It's the same concept, just applied in a different use.
It's so interesting, people say that the best ideas are often the simplest ideas. We're talking about it. Can you show us how it works, Megan?
Oh, yeah, sure. So this is our prototype that Saad made for Shad Cup. We had a different prototype while we were at Shad, but this one we constructed specifically for the Dobson Entrepreneurship Cup. So it works very similar to our product, just on a smaller scale. So our product changes based on outside temperature, and
so when it's warmer?
Yeah, when it's warmer, it turns white to reflect as much sunlight as possible. So you can see here where my hands touched it, where this is like on the warmest part of my hand. It's about 20 degrees. It'll turn white. So that kind of mimics environmental conditions where it is 20 degrees outside approximately, and it's summertime, so you want your roof to be reflecting as much light as possible.
The end purpose of our product is On a hot summer's day, your roof will automatically turn white without any user input or maintenance required, and it'll start reflecting the heat, so your air conditioning doesn't have to counter that, because 25% of your heat actually escapes through your roof, and we're trying to limit that down. And then on a colder day, it'll automatically turn black and start absorbing the sun's heat, which will support your heating system. So throughout the year, your roof will be working for you without you having to put in any effort.
What happens if it's a cloudy winter, as most winters are here?
Well, Megan can answer this one.
So our product is working basically to optimize the use of your HVAC system. So when it is that cold, cloudy winter day, it will be black. So any type of sunlight that is touching not touching, but coming towards the roof, it will absorb that. So it's working as much as it can to optimize the performance of your HVAC system. So no, even if there's just a little bit of sunlight, it can help to reduce the amount of energy you have to put into your HVAC system.
Would people have to paint their roofs black, or what would the application be?
So as we went through the design process, we thought of all the possible applications of this, and we wanted to limit the complexity and application of the idea. So what we did is we completely took out that step, and actually the contractor will just apply a shingle that is already painted. So the contractor has no extra effort required either. We're doing all the application, all the preparation, and it just goes on like a regular shingle.
You talked a little bit about the diversity being an important factor in the success of the group. You were the youngest member of the team.
Yeah.
Was that a factor at all?
I wouldn't say it was a factor at all. I mean, I did actually begin school early. I started all of my schooling a year before peers my own age. So I grew up my whole life with kids who are a year older than me. So it's an environment I'm definitely used to, and it's reflected in my personality. I don't. Some people say I don't act my age, but when I went to Shad, they right off the bat, from when we first came in, they expressed to us. Their main message was, you deserve to be here. Because I feel like a lot of people, including myself, they had problems when they first got there thinking, well, I don't deserve to be here. There's so many smarter people than me. How come I got in? Yeah. And so their main message was, you deserve to be here. You're qualified. We accepted you for a reason. So I think that really contributed to nobody ever treated me differently, because they knew that I deserved to be there. I knew that I deserved to be there. And we were all treated the same because we were all in the program together.
That's awesome.
For sure.
Talking about diversity, though, you're having people coming from different backgrounds, different parts of the country. Were there any challenges, Saad?
I would say there were some challenges, but they were quickly overcome. We walked into that room, and the initial ice being broken was very important. And with people coming in from all the way from BC to PEI, it's kind of a tough one to break because they have got completely different experiences. But for our group especially, we really used that to our advantage because everyone was tackling the problem from their own angles, and we took in all their input, which is really important in a group, because if people have their ideas, people have their experiences, you need to avail that resource. You shouldn't just shut it out, and that's what we did really well. And as Megan was saying, not acting her age is definitely true. I guess you could say she even took on a motherly role in the group.
A little bit.
And that's not because you're a girl, but just...
No.
A super caring and supportive figure that, controls the conversation and doesn't let it go out of hand.
And what have you learned, because you seem to have developed a really close relationship. What have you both learned from each other?
Oh, I think I've learned a lot from Saad. We became really good friends over the course of the program. One thing that I really took away from meeting him that I hadn't really considered before was he's a very, very positive person all the time. And I think that's so amazing because I feel like, especially in high school, you can get really caught up in grades and success and getting into university. And there's this very pessimistic view some people sometimes have that I've even fallen victim to myself of, oh no, I didn't get the good grades, or I am not as popular as this person. And I think that his attitude towards life and his positivity, he sends me inspirational quotes every day, which I really appreciate, and I look at them every morning. And he's just such a positive person, and I really appreciate that ethic in terms of how he approaches life. And so I definitely have tried to incorporate that into my own views.
And so,
thanks so much. So Megan, complete shock. So what I definitely learned was first impressions are usually wrong. First time I talked to Megan, she was super shy, super quiet. Oh, I don't really think I should be here. And immediately, the whole group, the whole program was super supportive. And as soon as she broke out of that shell, she was amazing. She was sharing her ideas. And you know, like, I've never seen anyone care that deeply about the people around her. Like, she actually truly cares about what every single person was doing in that group. If they were eating, if they were getting enough sleep, if they were like doing all their work. And if they had too much work, she would delegate tasks out evenly. And just managing a group that effectively while still caring about what, you know, everyone's feeling and still getting work done at the same time, that's really remarkable.
So I'm guessing an added bonus of being part of the program is these like lifelong relationships and friendships that happen in the group. Now that you've won all of these awards, you won, what, 5 awards?
Yes.
What happens with your project? What's next?
I guess I'll answer that one. So it's a bit of a process for sure. We are very lucky to have a really good support network around us. Our program director, Erin, she's actually, her job outside of Shad is she works in other things, but I know she works in patenting. And so she's been a really great support in terms of our next steps, because we are thinking about getting a patent for our product, and then the steps we take after that are still kind of to be determined. But we are definitely looking into protecting our idea because we think it's worthwhile to do so. And
we've definitely mapped out like the steps we would take after patenting. We're looking into like generating funding from different sources, so like business plan competitions. We're looking to crowdsource, you know, all the different options we're really looking into. Because once we do get that patent and once we're ready to move forward with everything,
you can retire.
we really want. Well, that'd be one goal, but we can make the world a better place, you know. That's the end dream. But you know, definitely planning all the way out to actually launching the business is something we've looked into, and we're really finalizing, especially like getting the chemical formula to be perfect, if not better than existing roofing. You know, we want to make it even better, not just in energy saving, but in quality and durability.
Well, the paint that you use comes from China, which means that it's coming from very far away. How does that affect your product, considering that it is a product that's supposed to help the environment?
So I work very closely with Hugo in our group. Hugo was in charge of like logistics and sourcing material and manufacturing. So what we really discussed was we need to cut down on as much energy usage as possible, because that was the theme for the year. So we looked into both options, producing and like harnessing resources within Canada and doing everything within Canada, or outsourcing. And we compared the energy usage, and actually it was quite shocking. So since in China, all the factories and the resources would be fairly closer together, the transportation between factories to get the product manufactured and then ship all the way over here in like a shipping tanker would cost less energy and less gasoline than producing it all within Canada and shipping everything back and forth with trucks.
We did actually discuss that at length. It was quite a process.
Why was that
for
important
us.
to?
Yeah, it was very important to us because we did not want to create a product that saved energy in one sector and then wasted it in the other. But we did. We're not really at liberty to discuss all of the very specific details of the chemicals in our product, just for intellectual property reasons. But some of like one of our main components does actually come from North America. So. We were very conscious about that, as Saad mentioned. We wanted to make sure that we were doing it properly and that we were doing it ethically as well.
And moving forward, how do you think your participation in the Shad program is going to affect your schooling in the future?
Okay, so I can answer this one first. Definitely, like, it expanded my view of my future, because as I mentioned, I'm interested in engineering, right? And before Shad, I was strictly looking at problem solving from an engineer's perspective. So like, what can I make to solve the problem? And that would be it. The first solution I would come to, that's all I'm going with. But now that I've started, you know, delving into environmental effects, you know, how can I benefit from an entrepreneurial perspective? Now my like solutions to all these problems, they really become a lot more refined. Because now I say, okay, so I came up with this physical solution, but how can I apply it? You know, what's the benefits? What's the downsides? What can I improve here to make it more efficient? And you know, that's really expanded my, I guess, problem solving. But in terms of schooling, I've started really valuing the theoretical knowledge I'm taking in, and started to really think about how I can apply it. Instead of just taking in all this information, writing it down on tests, I'm taking it in, processing it a lot more, thinking of how I can apply it in my future, and then of course taking the tests.
And Megan?
I think that Shad's really changed the way that I approach school in quite a few ways. it's definitely, as Saad mentioned, really taking in the information and thinking about how you can apply it. I think that that's something that it's really helped me improve. Also in terms of that a lot of the work ethic of a lot of the Shads, I was so inspired by, like I mentioned with Saad, I was so inspired by different people's work ethics and their opinions on different things and their outlooks on life. And all of the positive things that I gained from that, I really try to take that in and use it in my school life. And if I'm maybe feeling unmotivated or I'm not super into something, I just think to myself, it sounds very cheesy, but what would a Shad do? Because I think that it's a very specific type of person who is a Shad, and it is somebody who's hardworking and passionate and intellectual. And I think that that's something that I always like to remember because I am a Shad, and so I want that to carry through into all the work that I do, both in school and outside of school.
It's had a big impact on both of you, definitely. And continued success, Megan and Saad. Appreciate it, and continued success.
Thank you.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.